Let's have a look at the electrical tool in the 3D Tiny House Designer. The electrical tool allows you to easily design an electrical layout in your 3D tiny house and export electrical plans of it. To get started, I'm just going to have a quick look at the electrical tool itself, which is down here in the technical section in the bottom left. So just scroll down in the library bar here to find it. And when you get started, you will see the library of the electrical tool. And the way that we have designed the electrical tool is we broke down the process of planning your electrical into different categories. So instead of designing a floor plan in 2D and placing electrical icons, what you do in the 3D Tiny House Designer, you place electrical items in 3D. And to get started, I will just look into my switches here and start placing all of the switches that I would need in my design. So let's think about where my switches should be placed. As a quick tip, when you are placing electrical objects in the 3D Tiny House Designer, is that you can switch over into the walkthrough mode. So when you are in the regular camera mode, this one right here, this one is mainly designed to design your layout, but the walkthrough mode allows you to get into the tiny house and go up and close and personal with all of the objects in the design. Especially also it allows you to get inside of the tiny house quite easily. So there's a tutorial on the walkthrough in the camera and movement tutorial here, so I'm not going to go into the details of how this movement works. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at where I want to place my switch first, and let's say I will want to place a double switch next to my door here. So this is what's going to turn on my light. So I will put that over here, and then I will place a switch over here over the oven, and that will turn my oven on and off in case I want to turn it off. And then I will go into my bathroom and I will have a switch that will turn on and off my light that I will still place in a second, my mirror, as well as my heating. So I'm just going to put that next to the door like that here. And if the dimension lines encroach on the placement, so if you can't left click, you can actually click into the dimension line and press enter, and that will also place the electrical object as well. So that is a quick tip because some electrical objects are a little bit smaller. And then we'll grab a double switch here, which will turn my light and switch off as well. So I'll place it here next to the door like that, and there we go. Now we have placed most of our switches, and one thing that I will still do, I will place a switch up here for my loft as well. So that's the switches done, and now we can look at my lights. Of course, it really depends on in what order you want to do it. You can place your lights first and your switches then after, but so I just started with the switches here and I'll place my lights afterwards. So I'm just gonna go and grab some downlights, and it works the exact same way like it would with the switches. You would just look at where you want to place your light, and then you would point the mouse there, and then you would click on the left click button to place your light. Of course, we can use the dimension move tool here to help us out as well, so we can accurately place my lights as well. But I'm just going to loosely place my lights for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up to the ceiling, and I'll place a light here in the middle, and I'll grab this light here as well. And that's another good quick tip here. If you can't select a light, that is because the software wants to select the roof. And that's just because the two items are overlaying. And what you can do, you can go into your layers here and you can disable your roof. And now all of a sudden, it will be much easier to select my light. So there we go. Now we can grab this light here again, and then we'll place one on the other side exactly like that as well. We'll copy that, and then we'll place a light up here in the bathroom. And then we'll place a couple of lights here in the loft as well. And we will place a light over here in the bedroom. So we'll place one right in the center of this roof and another one right over here as well. So that's my downlights done. And then of course we can place my LED mirror like that. And then if we want to have a pendant light, we can use that as well, but I don't really want to have a pendant light in this design. Exterior lights make sense as well for this design, so I'll place them on the side here. As a quick tip, if you are already on the limit of your restrictions in your area, you need to make sure that the lights don't go too far and make the tiny house wider than it's allowed to be. So this might need to be actually a temporary connection that you can take on and off for transport as well. So this is just a quick tip to keep in mind. So that's my exterior lights. And that's all I want to place here for now. So I'm just going to go back here and just work my way through the categories. One thing that I haven't done yet is I haven't placed any plugs yet or sockets. And I'm just going to go back into my outlets here, or plugs or sockets. And I'll show you how to place these as well. So I will want to have a double outlet over the counter here, which will allow me to plug in any appliances. And I don't have anything in this island, so I don't need to have a plug down here, but I will need to have a plug behind my oven to plug that in as well. And a cool tip here is to, instead of having to move this object out of the way, you can actually quickly disable cabinetry and then place your plug behind and then enable it again. So I'll just go into views here and I'll turn off my cabinets. Then I grab a single outlet like this and place it down here behind the cabinet. And then I will turn it back on again, and now we've placed my plug. There we go. So now we have a plug over the counter, one behind my oven here as well. And then I might want to add an outlet down here so we can plug in my phone possibly. Then we'll add a plug over here like that. One thing is, when there are walls that are attached to the roof, sometimes the electrical tool doesn't actually pick up on it. So I'm just going to quickly pick up another side here. So I might just grab this one here for now. And then we'll go into my bathroom. Might want to grab an outlet on here. And then we'll add a switch in here. So that's already in there as well. So we're an outlet, not a switch. There we go. So that's my switches placed. And then we can go into my additional planning. So we'll look into my general category here. So this will allow me to place my breaker board. I will place my breaker board somewhere here in the hallway. Of course, this can't really be placed on the outside in most cases. So it makes sense to place this on the inside somewhere where it's easily accessible. Then we'll grab a smoke detector, which I will put here in, where do I want to place it? Somewhere over here. And then we'll grab a carbon monoxide detector as well. As a quick tip, when it comes to smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, there are specific regulations depending on where you are. So I'm personally based in New Zealand, and we have different regulations of where those can be placed. But if you're in the US or in Europe, for example, you would need to look up exactly where they need to be placed and what kind of offsets you need to have around walls, apexes, and all that kind of fun stuff. Then we'll place my hot water heater. So I'll place that on this side over here. This is just an instantaneous hot water heater. And then we'll grab a caravan plug and we'll put this on the back here as well. And we'll press enter here to quickly finish that movement. And then we'll go into my last section here, which will be my ventilation. And I will want to have a through wall fan in my bathroom. And I will want to put this somewhere here like that. And then we'll also grab an exterior air conditioning unit and we'll put this on here. Of course, we need the corresponding interior object as well. There we go. We'll check that over here. And we will not place a ceiling fan here for now. I've already placed a range hood here before as well. And this is just currently hanging out up here as well. So there we go. Now we have placed all of my electrical items. Of course, you can still go into more detail and place more electrical icons as well. But this is all you can do just to get started here for now. So now that we have placed all of my electrical items, we'll go into generating a plan to just see what we have created so far. So I'm going to disable all of my pages except the electrical for now to see what we have made. There we go. And then I'll just go and click the generate plans button here. There we go. So we'll just wait for a second until that is done. There we go. So the plan has just been generated now, and you can see what it looks like. The software has now converted all of the 3D objects into 2D icons. And so, for example, a double switch here would follow a double switch icon standard. So this is not a switch but a socket. And then we've got the exterior lights here, a single switch over here, or this is actually a triple switch, I think. And then we have a double switch over here, the caravan plug, the hot water heater. And what's very handy about the electrical plans is that we have this legend down here that shows you exactly what objects you have placed and how many of them you have placed. So first of all, you have the legend here that shows you which object corresponds to which icon, and then you have the quantity of each icon as well, or each object that you have placed. One other awesome thing about the electrical plan is it actually shows you exactly on what height the electrical object has been placed. So in this case, this socket here, for example, is 3'4" above the ground floor of the tiny house, meaning it is actually above the counter because a counter is at 3 foot high. So when you are communicating with your electrician, this is super handy because they can understand this switch here needs to go under the above the counter rather than under the counter. And in this case here, the single switch goes under the counter here. And one thing to keep in mind, of course, because the plan converts the 3D model information into a 2D plan, when you're placing objects very close together, you might have some overlap. So a quick tip to avoid that is to simply just place electrical objects as far apart as possible to give them some breathing room also on the plan as well. So that is how you would place objects in 3D and then create a 2D electrical plan from it. And the next part that we will cover is annotations and circuits for the electrical objects. So now we have my bare bones plan here, but we can actually add additional information to this plan as well. Just as a quick tip here, this is of course the loft plan that we have created just before as well. So what you will see here is the electrical component nodes page, and you can now add additional nodes to every single electrical component. So what I'm going to do now, I will show you how to first add circuits and then also add specific nodes to each object. So I'm just going to go back into the 3D Tiny House Designer now. There we go. So now to add objects to a circuit, it's very simple. Let's say, just as an example, we want to add this switch together with these two lights here onto a circuit. So what we will do, we will click on this object and we have this nodes section over here. So we will say this will be CE2, press enter to confirm that, and then we will select this object here, press CE2 and press enter. There we go. Put in C2 as well, and now all of these objects have the node C2. And we can do the same thing with other objects. So for example, if we want to have this switch here on circuit 1, for example, and we want to have this switch here also on circuit 1, so you can turn it off and on with that. Now we have put these two objects on the same circuit. Now to show you what that looks like once we have exported the plans, I'll just quickly generate another plan set here. So now we have added nodes and circuits to my object. So what you will see here, the electrical tool automatically gives every single object with a node a custom label that is then referenced on my nodes page. So what you will see here, this is a double switch, and this is double switch 1, and you will see this node here now pop up over here. So you will see double switch 1 is on circuit 2, and then if we go up here, we have the downlight here is UNK, and we have UNK1 and UNK2, which are the two downlights here, and each of them is on circuit 2. So you can now understand that these go onto circuit 2 here. And then we have the single switch up here, as well as the single socket as well, which are SSW and SOL, which now pop up on circuit 1 here. So now you can very quickly keep a very clean plan set without cluttering up this plan set with nodes, but you just have callouts that refer back to some nodes over here, and then you can see the circuits that are drawn over here. So it's a very simple kind of spreadsheet approach to the circuits. We will at some point still add visible circuits that you can have different connection lines that you can see over those plans here that will also be automatically generated. There we go. So that's how you add circuits in the 3D Tiny House Designer. Rather than just adding circuits, you can also use the nodes section to add additional information to your design. So I will just quickly go back into the software to show you how that works. There we go. Now we're back in the software, and to add additional information, so for example, if you want to put on a specific call out to communicate something specific with your electrician, you can use this node section as well. So for example, you can put in a specific node like install above the counter, press enter, and this confirms the command. And now we can generate the plans again, which will now also pop up in my node section. There we go. So now it has automatically created a custom name for this object. And now what we can see in here is that this switch now has the node that this should be installed above the counter. So this is how you can add additional information to this plan without cluttering up the plan set. One last thing, you can actually add custom names. So rather than using the automatically generated names, you can add a custom name to your object. So we can just click into the custom name tab in here and then just call this double socket 1, for example. And then when we generate the plans, this will also show up on there as well. There we go. So the custom node has also now shown up on my plans, and it just calls out double socket 1. So of course, one thing to keep in mind when you do use custom names, if you put in a long custom name and you have a lot of objects next to each other, they might overlap. So using the automatically generated names will make sure that you don't clutter up your plan very quickly.